Have you ever heard the military do this while they march?
Hey, right on down the line. Hey, right on down the line. Come on over. Come on over.
That's called sounding off, and the military has been doing it for decades to keep their units together when they march. But what if I told you that a black soldier made the whole thing up on the spot in 1944? So stay with me, because the story of how this spread across all military culture will blow your mind. And what that soldier said at the end, when he was finally alone with the truth, is gonna mess you up. You see, back then, the Army was still segregated. So that means that black soldiers marched with black units under white commanding officers in a country that called them citizens but treated them like they were something less. And one of those soldiers was a sharecropper's son from Sandersville, Georgia. His name was Willie Lee Duckworth. And before the Army drafted him, he was working at a sawmill. He was quiet and unremarkable on paper. Definitely nobody's idea of the man who would change military history. But that winter, he and his fellow soldiers were coming back from a long march through rough, swampy ground outside New York. And I want you to picture this. It's cold, it's dark, the ground is wet, and these men had been marching for hours. I think it's safe to say that no one was talking. But then, out of that silence, Duckworth started calling out a rhythm. Sound off. 1, 2. And the men answered back. But here's the part that changes everything. The whole crew picked their heads up. A little pep came back in their step. And 200 tired men started marching like they had something to prove. Now you need to understand something. The post commander has spent years trying to crack that exact problem. How do you keep men sharp on a long march when their bodies are shutting down? He had resources, he had rank, and he had time. But he didn't have the sauce that my man Duckworth had. You see, Colonel heard the troops before he could see them. So when they got back to the base, he pulled Duckworth into the office. And this is where the story gets complicated, because the colonel wanted to know the sauce. So he asked Duckworth, "Where did you get the sauce?" Duckworth looked up and said, "I just made it up. I'm really like that for real." Colonel was stunned, and he told Duckworth, "Okay, you're dismissed." I'm telling you, as soon as that door closed, he pulled out the books and started adding Duckworth's chant into the official Army manual. But the chant was so good, it started to spread everywhere. Next thing you know, the Air Force had it, then the Marines, then the Navy. But then it left the military completely. Hollywood put it in a war movie called Battleground in 1949. Then a band leader named Bon Monroe recorded it as a song in 1951 and made a hit. That thing sold like hotcakes. If you want to go listen to it after the video, it's called Sound Off V-Disc. And yes, he credits Duckworth as the man who created it. So one chant a private made up turned into a military staple, then a movie, and then a hit record. And this ain't no sob story, because Duckworth used the royalty checks he got from that record to start his own business after he got out of the military. If you like what you're hearing, go ahead and like the video and follow, because there's a lot more where this came from. But here's what I couldn't stop thinking about. That answer that Duckworth gave the colonel about making the whole thing up in his head. Man, that was cap. But he held on to that story for 58 years. So finally, as an old man, he sat down with the newspaper and told the truth. He said the chant didn't come from his head. It came from calling hogs on the farm back home in Sandersville. That rhythm, that call and response, he'd been doing a version of it since he was a child. But when the colonel asked him, a black private sitting across from a white colonel in a segregated army in 1944, Duckworth didn't say any of that. I wouldn't know what to say either. In 2004, Willie Lee Duckworth passed away. Georgia renamed a stretch of highway after him, the Willie Lee Duckworth Highway, right where he grew up. So the next time you see a military unit march by, remember to trace that back to a foundational Black American on a cold night in 1944. Foundational Black Americans didn't just survive this country. We set the rhythm it marches to. Ain't no use in feeling blue. Share this post with someone new. Sound off.